Hello, Bonnie McDonald Dixon saying hello from TellYourStory.Productions. And today we're talking with Robyn McTague. And Robyn, I'm just so curious. You have an amazing talent for dream coaching. Can you tell me a little bit more about dream coaching?
Sure. Thank you, Bonnie. And so dream coaching is a 10-step process. And a lot of people think the dreaming is about our sleep dreams.
Yes.
And I do help people with that in another area. But this is really about what is the dream for our life.
Wow. And so would that be for a young person, someone in the middle of their life, or someone in three-quarter time? Who are some of your clients that you're working with right now?
It really could be for anyone, though I find it tends to be more 40s and up because it's those places where maybe there's been a shift in your life and you have more space and more time and kids are gone, that kind of thing, or maybe you've moved and so there's a difference in your life where now you can kind of look at where is my life at. And maybe those dreams were put on hold and maybe it's time to look at them again, or maybe it's time for a new dream. And some people really have that feeling it has to be this big thing, and it really doesn't have to be. And some people actually use the process just to learn to dream again.
So they may have had a dream at one point and released it or hidden it and tucked it away, and you help uncover that?
Yes, it's like really what is it that you want? So really looking at, is that dream still the dream that you want? Maybe it's something different. I was just listening to a story about two women who rode their horses across Canada, and it was from a dream from their childhood, and they finally are just doing it now. So it could be something from then, or maybe things have shifted in your life and you're open to what's next, and you're not really sure what that is.
I have a question for you, Robyn. I just heard a story from a priest at a Catholic church, and he said he had a dream. And his dream was to travel the world with his mother and sister. And towards the end of the story, he shared he didn't have a sister, but he always dreamed that he had a sister. And so do you often find people have a dream that may never come to fruition? And can you help walk them through that and help them readjust their dream or find a new dream or come to terms with the dream they had?
Well, it's kind of interesting when you say that, because really, what is a sister? Is it biological, or is it someone that you connect with on that level? So I would say that dream may still be valid. Maybe we just have to do some adjustments.
Okay.
And look at it from a different perspective, because I think that's so important to really see what is the way I can look at it from a different angle. And when we're doing it ourselves, we tend to look at a very limited way because that's the way we've always done it. And when we're able to open up and speak to someone else and get asked questions, it starts to open up that framework of what we've looked at to see, oh, there's some other possibilities.
So the possibility factor comes in so that they get a higher perspective, a different perspective, and someone to maybe hold their hand through the process.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that we need to do in that process, right from the big picture right down to the actual steps of action that we need to take. And so, for example, after we do that initial intake, we talk about intention. And intention is a way for us to actually help us to create something specific so that we can actually follow that trajectory and make it happen. But if we don't have intention, then we're just kind of flopping around and hoping something happens.
So throughout your sessions that you take people through, can it be scary, or is it scary for people sometimes? Or is this something that they're really looking forward to and they want to expand? Are people coming from different places as you're going through this process?
Yes, it can come from any kind of area, and it might bring up some fears because maybe it's something that they wanted to do in the past and attempted to do it and it didn't come to fruition, or those mindset challenges came up, like we talk about the universal challenge line. And we come right up to that line, and are we going to cross it or not? Are we going to keep going? And how often do we hear of people that are continuing on their journey and stop before they actually become successful?
Yes.
So those things can come up, and so we do things like deal with the doubter, because we all have a doubter within us.
Yes.
And it's not that the doubter is not beneficial. The doubter is there to help us to look at what is true, what's not true. So making friends with the doubter and using that information to help us on the path. So we don't discount anything. And some of the other work I do with the Enneagram, we actually look at some of those shadow things where if we discount them and disown them, they're going to come up in different ways unconsciously and create sabotage and ways that will stop us on our path without acknowledging them.
Now, you just shared a word that maybe some people might not know, and I hope I say it. Enneagram? Can you share a little bit more about that and what that term is and what that looks like?
So the Enneagram is a personality profiling system, and it's very ancient. It's about 4,000 years old, or thought to be. There's lots of history, and we don't know exactly where it came from, certainly from Sufi influences and different mystic background, and it was originally used just by the spiritual community, and then back in the 60s the psychological component was added in. And so now it's used in all sorts of areas for transformation, both psychologically and spiritually. So the idea is that we come into the world and we feel something's missing, and we spend our life looking for that outside of ourselves rather than internally. And by having that focus, we tend to put our attention on certain things in our world. And so this is a way to look at what are those ego defense mechanisms that came in, and what are some of the things that we put into the shadow. And I find it a very elegant system to help us to see what our attention goes to and how we might be interacting with ourselves in the world. And the reason I got involved was another process I do called a motivational map. And I just found the precision and the knowledge that it gave people was so helpful that I wanted to go deeper into the Enneagram to help them on that deeper level with that.
So these tools that you're sharing with your clients, they can be used for the rest of their lives?
Right. What happens is we actually integrate these. So for example, with the dream coaching, we go through that process in 12 weeks. And you can start right again with a new dream if you want.
I see.
Or use those steps that you've learned in the process to help you on your day-to-day life. And with the Enneagram, it's an ongoing uncovering of more and more who we are, that core essence, without the specific ways that we've been taught or we kind of tend to see the world. So as I see my type come up and then choose differently, then I can let go of some of that restriction that I might feel. So I can feel the more true essence of who I am, because it's really about the core essence of who you are underneath all of that.
So it's like the unpeeling of an onion until you're getting to the core so that they can recreate themselves.
Yeah, and really just be who you are and appreciate that for what it is, rather than feeling that we need to fix things.
I see.
Yeah.
Can you share with me some of the things that happen to people after a process like that? Maybe how they feel, or have they been able to go on to do the things they want to do because of going through this process?
One of the biggest things I find is for people, especially if you've been cut off from your feelings, is really get in touch with that part of yourself. And our feelings are really where our power is, because when we're in touch with our feelings, we know what our direction is in life. And it helps us to create boundaries, learn to say no, say yes to what we want.
That's a big one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never going to steer us wrong. Whereas if we're constantly in our head or thinking about it, we're only going to get so far. And so we actually have 3 centers, the head, heart, and gut, or body. And we learn to integrate all those parts of self. So one of the sayings we have is all parts are welcome.
Oh, wonderful.
So we really want to be holistic. And that's really my goal in everything I do, is that holistic healing. And that's kind of why I call myself Master Holistic Healer, because we need to look at ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yes. Now, do you find men and women both use the process?
They do. And I would say women a bit more open, but I'm finding more and more men are interested as well. But there is that place where they can feel a little bit more afraid because of going into the feelings or going into those parts that maybe they've shut down in a different way, just because the way they've been raised. And that's the same with the training and power work I teach, where we really go deep and connect to our spirit. And my next class is interesting. I mainly have men in that group.
Interesting. Now, do you find that you are helping professionals out that are in a professional field, that's helping them out as well?
Definitely. It helps on all levels. So especially, for example, with the motivational map and the Enneagram. So for example, if with the motivational map, if the director is really strong and you're like, you know, you like to be in charge, but it's like, how do you learn to let others in and help you? Because, you know, are you going to be prone for burnout? You can't do it all yourself.
Yes.
And you need to learn that you need some time to sit back from it too, and actually, how can I incorporate other people into what I do? So we look at 9 different dimensions, and what's the stacking of those? What's important to you? Is it being met or not? And what's the intensity? So, for example, if we have one area that's really strong and haven't developed the others, then we may be so focused on one thing, something else suffers. So if I'm really interested in my growth and learning and doing all these things, maybe my relationships suffer.
I see.
So it's a way to kind of see, where am I at? What's motivating me? And then we can look at some of those underlying pieces with the Enneagram type and what's going on underneath it in the unconscious area.
I'm curious, do people come in sometimes with thinking this is an issue and really find out it's something else?
Often. The way I look at it, it's all about relationships.
Okay.
And it's relationships with other people, but really it's about with ourselves. And the more that we can know who we are and have that internal relationship with ourselves and our connection to our spirit, the more that we can be solid in who we are and have better relationships in the world, in all areas of our life. Everything from acquaintances to our deeper, intimate relationships.
Oh, I bet that's a big one for people. Yes, yes. Now, do you have a program?
I have a couple different programs.
Oh.
So there is the training and power work. I work through the academy for that, and that's the spiritual, we call it the prophet. So you learn to divine the future and do healings through the class.
Wow.
And it's very profound. You get grounding and shielding and all sorts of tools. It's an active style of meditation and healing. So you're learning things like dream interpretation.
Okay.
And all sorts of amazing tools to help you help yourself and other people.
Yes.
And then the other process I do, the initial assessment, is usually the motivational map with a bit of numerology. I like to look at what our intensity is around, what are the lessons in our life that we're looking at with the numerology. And we also have personal years. So where we are in that 9-year cycle, maybe you're in the process of ending in a 9, so you find that you really want to declutter and you're letting go of things and you're wondering, why am I looking at these people and thinking I need to let them go? And so it just gives you a framework where it's like, okay, I've completed that cycle. I'm now moving into a year 1, which is new beginnings. So I'm paving the path of letting go of what I no longer need, so I can move forward into something else.
Fascinating.
And
so
then,
do you find people move from one of your programs to another program to learn even more?
Right. So what happens, they do that initial assessment, then usually come into the coaching for 3 months, and that's where I combine the Enneagram with the other psychological and conflict resolution tools. I find a lot of it is really being clear on what we want and learning some of those conflict resolution skills so that we can really say what we need and want, and so we're able to get what we need. Because if we're not clear, then other people aren't going to read our mind to know exactly what we need.
That is a very clear message. Getting clarity will make their life much easier, happier, and joyful, it sounds like, to know where you're going.
Yeah, and we're all unique, so it's like knowing who we are allows us to then be able to have those deeper, authentic, and more meaningful relationships in our lives.
I just want to thank you so much, Robyn. It's fascinating what you're teaching people and how you're helping people. And so we want to thank Robyn McTague today, Bonnie McDonald Dixon with Tell Your Story Productions. And Robyn, can you share the website that people would go to learn more?
alifeofchoice.ca.
So that's alifeofchoice.ca.
Right.
And we just want to thank you so much today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.